folks. Christine Bergman, guidance counselor at DePaul School, sending out more support. Going to give some tips today about managing behavior issues. Kids have lots of behaviors for lots of reasons, but mostly that's just how kids are. That's normally how they are. And kids test limits because that's how they learn. They're always trying to see, how does this work? How do I get what I want? How do I get more of what I want? How do I get attention? So it's a natural part. So sometimes we forget that kids are going to have those behavior problems or at least test limits in one way or another. And when we forget that, we forget to have a game plan. So I really advocate having a game plan, having a parenting plan or a behavior management plan that works in your house. And it has to be flexible, it has to keep getting updated to account for the expectations that you have for your children. And as they get a little older, you can expect a little bit more. So let's talk about what are some of the do's and don'ts of having a great behavior management plan for your kids. We want to think about what reinforces their good behavior. What is your leverage? What do you have to work with? What do they like to do? I bet for your children you can think of a long list of things that they like and they like to do. Even from having some privacy in their room or saying, can I get that extra special thing to eat? Can I have dessert tonight that's really a special treat? So once you have those ideas, you know that they are able to be rewarded and reinforced. The other thing that's really important is make sure that you have prioritized what your expectations are. What are the rules in your house? What are at least the top 3 things that are very important? And make sure you discuss these with your children. I often recommend starting out with kind of some general things like be respectful, follow directions, no hurting. Those 3 right there tend to cover lots and lots of things. So if your kids know those are the rules, just like in school, they know that they have to follow the rules in order to have their privileges and have fun and have their free time. Or if they don't follow the rules, they might lose some of that fun time. So make sure you've identified that and you've communicated that within your family, how important that is. Some of the other things are to make sure that when you are saying something, kids know that you really mean it. So this is where we have to talk about picking your battles, right? Because there's so many things that we're concerned about. We want to teach kids so many different behaviors that we might want to address. But it's really good maybe once a week to decide the things that you're going to highlight. What are the most important kinds of things to work on? So picking your battles a little bit. Because once you tell your child that there's a rule or they need to do something, it's so important to follow through. If you're not up for it, if you're really busy or stressed or something is going to be distracting and you're not going to be able to follow through on it, or you're just not up for it that day because there's been 15 other fires you've had to put out, maybe it's better to not say it. Let it go if you can. Save it for another time. Because once you've given a direction, it's really important that you follow through. Because we teach kids how to respond to us, just like we teach people how to respect us or not. So if you say something and at least at times there's nothing that really gets followed through, then your child will learn to not listen. And then that's a whole other roadblock that you have to overcome. So make sure that you're following through and that it's the right timing to be able to follow through. Even when we're telling kids to get something done, you want to come back around in a short amount of time to see if they're on task or not. It's really important that we're remembering that kids get distracted pretty easily. So another important part of getting kids to follow your directions is first, make sure that they really are paying attention. I think everybody knows the trick of getting that eye contact, right? Not the staring, but the direct eye contact. If your child is close to you and looking at you, they're more likely to actually be absorbing the information. If we're kind of yelling from the other room, it's not so great, is it? So go to where the child is, ask them to come to where you are, and that way you know that they've been told, that they've actually heard what you say. The second time, if that direction isn't followed, you want to make it even more clear that it's serious. Sometimes we might confuse giving a suggestion instead of a direction. Like when we ask a child, wouldn't you like to do your homework now? Don't you think it's a good idea to get dressed now? Those can be taken as optional. So you have to decide, is it optional or not? It's great to give kids choices sometimes. That really helps with cooperation. But probably not everything should be a choice. There are some things that just have to get done. So it might be helpful to let your child know that this is not a suggestion, this is a direction. So I expect you to follow my directions as the parent. Once that direction is really clear, you may have to repeat that. But it's very important to not repeat, 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 repeat. Because what that does is it teaches the child that you don't really mean it until maybe you've repeated it a dozen times. So that's more wear and tear on everybody. I like the 3 strikes you're out rule. First time is the direction. Second time, you're really being kind and helpful and making sure that they've understood you absolutely clearly that this is the direction. And then the third time, last warning. Last warning means that if the direction isn't followed, there will be some kind of action or consequence following that. So this goes back to, what do we do for consequences? I'm going to be talking a lot more about what to do when some things that you're doing as behavior interventions don't work, right? It's really great to have a whole list of maybe 10 different things that you can do, and I'll help you with that. But first of all, when you're following a non-preferred activity, homework, with a preferred activity, that helps motivate, right? Everybody knows how to kind of dangle that carrot a little bit. And that's very realistic, because as people get older, we'd like to teach kids that you get a paycheck when you do a good bit of work, right? So when you're able to set up that contingency that that can happen, what you'd like to do as soon as this is done, then you can build on that. If the child is refusing to do what you're asking, then you start to take away time from those positive activities. The consequence does not have to be a big severe punishment. It causes more drama. I suggest starting with a few minutes, starting with loss of 15 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe an hour for older kids that they've lost a certain privilege. For younger kids, it can be playtime. It can be when they get to go out to play, when they get to get on that electronic, when they get to have fun time with you. For teenagers, it's similar. It might have more to do with their phone, though. So the first consequence after the warning, if nothing's been followed, would be taking a small amount of time. What that does is it keeps you having some leverage, and it reminds the child to make a good choice. It's not too dramatic. After a while, they start to realize it's kind of silly for me to fight about this and lose hours and hours and hours of that fun thing that I wanted to do when I could have only maybe lost 15 minutes. So by breaking down the consequences is first losing the privileges a little bit and then building on it, it gives you more to work with. The most important thing than anything in the world in doing effective behavior management is the hardest. That is for the parent to stay calm. So we got to do our own stress management, our own deep breaths, our own walking away and regrouping sometimes, and then coming back. Because when you're calmer, then you show that you're able to take care of the situation, right, as the parent. That you're not only the authority, but you're the caretaker. So staying calm when you're giving the directions and you're giving the warnings and you're even giving the consequences or the rewards are really important. So I hope this gets you started to be thinking about how it's going in your household, and I'll continue to talk about some more specific interventions that might be helpful when things are just not working. All right, good luck.